It was the middle of July, and the campus had that eerie summer stillness. Most students were gone, and the hallways echoed with their absence. Kelsey had taken a short-term sublet in a faded off-campus apartment complex, where the walls were thin and the air always smelled faintly of dust and reheated takeout. Her roommate, Mitch, was a quiet PhD student who barely spoke. He always kept his door shut and his blinds drawn. The apartment felt hollow and a little too quiet, like the silence itself was watching. At first, Kelsey welcomed the peace. She spent her evenings reading on the couch with a fan buzzing low in the background and the cheap floorboards creaking every time she shifted. But slowly, little things began to feel off. Her toothbrush would be damp when she hadn't used it. A drawer left open just a crack. She blamed it on her own forgetfulness until she couldn't anymore. Something in that apartment had started to feel wrong in a way she couldn't quite name. It started with the locks. Kelsey would double-check the knob before bed, even jiggle it a little to be sure. But by morning, it would sometimes be unlatched. Not wide open, just turned the tiniest bit, like someone had tested it and left it where it was. At first, she blamed the building. The place was old, with loose door frames and faulty latches. But the second time it happened, she remembered hearing a soft click in the middle of the night. Not loud enough to jolt her fully awake, but enough to sink into her dreams and leave her feeling restless by sunrise. She stopped leaving her laptop out on the kitchen counter. Once, she came home and the screen was still warm. The lid was closed, and she knew she had shut it down that morning. But the faint hum of the fan and the light fingerprint smudge on the corner of the screen told a different story. She didn't bring it up with Mitch. He barely looked at her when they passed in the hallway. Just a quick nod and then back into his room. His door always shut so softly it was almost polite. The nights felt longer than they should have. The apartment had no central air, only a rattling box fan that sat crooked in her window. It kicked up the smells of old carpet and stale food. And sometimes when she was lying still, she could swear she heard movement in the kitchen. Not the thump of feet or clatter of dishes, more like a chair being slowly dragged across tile, only to be returned quietly to its place before she could sit up and listen. She started sleeping with a flashlight tucked under her pillow, her phone unlocked and screen dimmed beside her. Not out of panic, but just in case. One evening, she came back from the laundromat, and something in her room felt colder than usual. Her sheets had a different fold in them. Not messy, just slightly disturbed. She knew she hadn't made her bed that day, and yet it looked freshly tucked on one side. The edge of her nightstand drawer was open by a finger's width. Inside, nothing was missing. Not exactly, but her charger cable had been wound tighter than she ever wrapped it. She stopped feeling like she was living alone. There was no real proof, just a steady drip of details that piled into something undeniable. Mitch never made eye contact anymore. He started keeping his light off at night. The faint blue glow under his door disappeared completely and was replaced by silence that felt too intentional, too heavy. One night, when she passed by his door on the way to the bathroom, she thought she heard the soft, static crackle of headphones being yanked off quickly. A breath held. A floorboard creaked softly behind the door. The last thing that pushed her over the edge was the bathroom mirror. Fogged up from a shower she hadn't taken, it revealed a message someone had traced with their finger. Just 3 words. "You look tired." It was after 2 a.m. when Kelsey sat straight up in bed, heart pounding from a noise she couldn't place. Not a bang or crash, just a soft mechanical whir that didn't belong. The apartment was dead quiet, except for the fan sputtering against the window. She stayed frozen for a moment, listening with her breath held so tight it hurt. The sound came again. A faint electric click followed by a low buzzing. It was coming from the air vent above her closet door. She slid out of bed slowly, the floor cold against her feet. The flashlight was already in her hand. She aimed it at the vent. The grate was dusty and crooked like it had been removed and put back carelessly. Her pulse thumped loud in her ears as she stepped closer. The buzzing sound had stopped, but she could still feel the weight of something wrong pressing into the room. She grabbed her desk chair and dragged it under the vent. Every second felt heavier than the last. Climbing up, she saw it clearly. Inside the vent was a small black object. Not wires or dust or old insulation. It was a camera. A tiny one with a blinking red light tucked into the shadows, taped into place with thick black electrical tape. Her stomach flipped. Her knees almost gave out as she climbed back down. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and turned on the camera app. She recorded it, the light, the positioning, everything. Then she ran to her laptop. The moment she opened the lid, her screen flashed to life. The login screen had changed. The usual image of her cat was gone. In its place was a plain black background with the word hello written in lowercase white letters. Her breath caught in her throat. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then the screen blinked again and shut off on its own. She yanked the power cord from the wall and backed away. Her reflection in the dark screen looked as terrified as she felt. She grabbed her backpack and stuffed whatever she could fit: phone, charger, flashlight, a few clothes. Her laptop stayed on the floor. The hallway outside was silent, but every shadow looked alive. Mitch's door was cracked open just slightly. Not enough to see inside. Just enough to know it hadn't been that way earlier. Her mouth went dry. She didn't stop to look. She ran. Out the door, down the stairs, into the night. The cold air hit her like a slap, but she didn't care. She kept moving until the apartment was out of sight. The streets were empty. Her fingers were trembling as she called a rideshare. She didn't look back. Not once. Kelsey never went back to that apartment. She filed a quiet report through the school's housing office, then moved in with a cousin across town. Weeks passed and no one followed up. No calls, no emails. When she checked the listing again online, the unit was still active, still available for short-term sublet. Nothing had changed except her. She kept the footage but never showed it to anyone. The blinking red light, the black screen, the word hello. She replayed it once in a while late at night, just to remind herself it was real. Each time it felt worse, like the message wasn't finished, like it had been waiting for a reply. She replaced her laptop, got a new phone, but sometimes she would open her camera app and it would lag for just a second too long. Or she would hear the soft whir of a fan and freeze in place. There were nights she'd wake up to the sound of plastic shifting in the walls. Her cousin said it was just mice. She nodded and pretended to agree. One day she searched her name online. Nothing unusual at first. Then a page popped up with no title, just a thumbnail. A still image of her face caught mid-yawn, from an angle she didn't recognize. The video was gone by the time she clicked it. Page not found. But that image burned into her memory. Even now she sleeps with her closet light on, and the vent sealed shut with duct tape she checks every night before bed. She never learned who placed the camera or how long it had been recording. The footage was gone before anyone else saw it, and sometimes, when she closes her eyes at night, she swears she can still hear the soft click of a lens adjusting in the dark. Ryan had a routine. After late nights at the law library, he would head down to the second level of the campus parking garage where the overhead lights buzzed quietly and flickered just enough to feel wrong. The air down there always felt a little colder than outside. Concrete walls trapped the smell of engine oil and old rain. His car was parked in the same back corner every time. It was the only spot near a camera, and he liked the comfort of being in its line of sight. The place was usually empty by the time he left. Just silence and the echo of his own footsteps following close behind. At first it felt normal, familiar. Then he started noticing the same old blue sedan parked near his car night after night. Same dent in the bumper, same sticker in the rear window. No one ever got out. No one ever went in. The first night Ryan noticed the sedan, he barely thought about it. It was late and his mind was fried from hours of reading case law. The second night, it was in the same spot. Lights off, engine cold, windows fogged just enough to hide the interior. Still, he ignored it. The third night was when the feeling changed. He could see the shape of someone in the driver's seat, still as a statue, not looking at anything in particular, just sitting there like they had nowhere else to be. Ryan kept his head down and unlocked his car fast. The sound of his own door slamming felt too loud in the quiet garage. It became a pattern. Every few nights he would see that same car in that same spot. Always parked crooked, always too close to his own. Sometimes it was gone by the time he left. Sometimes it wasn't. One night he walked past it, and the driver's window was rolled down just a crack. He caught the faint scent of something sweet, not pleasant, more like rotting fruit and stale air. He never looked directly in. 2 weeks in, he started timing his exit, trying to leave while other students were still walking through. But the garage was unpredictable. Some nights it was packed. Others it felt like a tomb. One night it was raining hard. He jogged in, soaked and frustrated, and found his back left tire completely flat. No nail, no shard, just flat. The sedan was there, closer than usual. The figure inside rolled down the window 2 inches and said something he couldn't quite hear. Just a low mumble carried by the echo of dripping concrete. Ryan's pulse spiked. He waved it off and headed back toward the stairwell. The voice called out again, slightly louder this time. A slow, careful offer to help. Ryan didn't answer. He kept walking, fast but not panicked. He could feel eyes following him. He spent that night on a friend's couch and came back the next morning with a spare. The sedan was gone. His tire looked like it had been stabbed with something narrow and deliberate. After that, he started noticing the same figure on other parts of campus. Far off, sitting on benches, standing by vending machines, never close enough to be certain. Always still, always silent, just within view. Once he passed the student rec center, and the blue sedan was idling near the dumpsters. No one else seemed to notice. No one else ever saw what he did. It happened on a Thursday night just before midnight. The library had emptied out early and the parking garage was darker than usual. 2 of the overhead lights near Ryan's spot were out completely, and the shadows clung to the walls like they had weight. His steps echoed louder than they should have, and every few seconds he glanced over his shoulder. The blue sedan was there. Same angle, same dent. But this time it was closer than ever. Parked directly beside his car with barely enough space to squeeze between. He felt his chest tighten. The driver was there again. Head down, hands resting on the wheel. Ryan slowed as he approached. His keys were already out, but he kept them tight in his fist. As he passed the sedan, he could feel eyes on him. Not just from the driver, but from somewhere deeper. He reached his car door and pulled it open fast. That was when the sedan's door creaked open behind him. The sound was slow and deliberate. A low groan of rusted hinges and weight shifting out. Ryan turned just enough to see a man step out. Average height, hoodie pulled tight around his face. He didn't say a word, just stood there with his head slightly tilted, like he was waiting for Ryan to make a move. Ryan slammed his door shut and backed away. His hands fumbled for his phone. The man took 1 step forward, then another, not running, just closing distance without any urgency. Ryan turned and ran, sprinting toward the stairwell. His footsteps slapped against the concrete floor and the cold air burned in his throat. Behind him, he could hear the man's pace change. Faster now, shoes scraping with intent. He reached the metal door and threw it open. The sound of it banging against the wall echoed down the stairwell. He ran 2 flights up without looking back. When he reached the top, he threw himself into the main building and found a security guard leaning on the front desk. He tried to explain, but the words tumbled out in broken gasps. They went back together. No one was there. The sedan was gone. His car untouched. No tire marks. No wet footprints. Just silence. The guard nodded like he had heard it all before, like it wasn't the first time. He told Ryan to file a report if he felt unsafe. That was it. Ryan walked home that night, left his car in the garage. He never parked there again. Ryan stopped using the garage after that night. He started parking farther away in open lots near the dorms, even if it meant walking through the cold. He told himself the man was probably just unstable or lonely or looking for trouble, but not really dangerous. That lie held together for a little while, until small things started happening again. He began noticing the same blue sedan on different streets, not parked this time, just idling slowly near crosswalks, turning down side roads behind him, waiting at the same red light a little too long. He changed his routes, took different sidewalks, but it kept showing up. Once he looked out from the back of a coffee shop and saw it parked across the street, empty, windows up, engine off, but it was there, facing him. He told the campus office. They said it was probably coincidence. He asked for footage from the parking garage and was told it had already been overwritten. That was standard policy. He filed a report. Nothing came of it. Late one night, he heard something outside his apartment window. A faint, mechanical hum followed by the slow crunch of gravel. He peeked through the blinds. The street was empty, but a set of fresh, wet footprints led across the sidewalk and stopped beneath his window. No car, no sound, just footprints, facing the building, motionless. He taped black construction paper across the windows, left the blinds closed. Every now and then he still feels it, that cold pressure of someone just out of view, not watching him exactly, just waiting for something. No one ever identified the man in the sedan. The security footage vanished, the footprints dried up. But sometimes Ryan still wakes up certain he heard an engine idling just outside. Low, steady, like it never really left, like it's still circling the block. Julia was one of the only students left in her dorm that weekend. The building had gone quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No music behind doors. No laughter drifting through the halls. Just the low hum of the vending machine down the corridor and the occasional rattle of pipes in the walls. The heat had clicked off for some reason, and the air inside felt damp and heavy, like a basement left too long untouched. She was curled up with her laptop trying to finish a paper when she noticed how loud her own breathing sounded in the stillness. The dorm had always felt safe. Locked doors, cameras in the hall, keycard entry, but something about being the only one left started to mess with her. Shadows stretched longer. Sounds lingered too long. And when she heard the first soft tap at her door, she thought she had imagined it. The first night the tapping came around 2 a.m, barely audible. A soft, rhythmic tick that stopped the second she sat up. Julia waited in the dark for it to start again, but it didn't. She got up and peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Dim yellow light stretched across the floor in a crooked line, and nothing moved. No shadows, no sounds, just silence. The second night it returned, this time louder. 3 steady knocks like someone using their knuckles gently but with purpose. She checked again. Still no one. No footsteps retreating. No doors closing nearby. She tried to convince herself it was plumbing or maybe someone on the floor above. The building was old and creaky, and half the lights flickered when the heater kicked in. By the third night, the pattern changed. The knocking came earlier, just after midnight. It started soft, then suddenly slammed once so hard, her mirror rattled against the wall. Her heart jumped into her throat. She jumped from her bed and grabbed the chair by her desk to wedge under the doorknob. Her fingers shook. She stayed like that for an hour, listening. Nothing else came. The next morning, she found a faint smudge on her door just below the handle, like a handprint but blurred and oily, the kind of print you'd miss if you weren't looking closely. She touched it and her fingers came away sticky. She wiped it clean and said nothing to the RA. The floor felt wrong that weekend. Lights stayed dim even in the middle of the day. Elevator buttons stuck longer than usual. Every time she walked to the laundry room, she felt eyes on her from somewhere behind. Not constant, just a flicker of awareness that vanished as soon as she turned around. On Sunday night, she left her room for the first time in hours, just to heat up food in the common area microwave. When she came back, her door was cracked open, barely, maybe 2 inches, just enough to see a sliver of her bed. She froze. She knew she had locked it. She always did. She stepped inside slowly, her pulse pounding in her ears. Nothing looked touched, but something felt off. Her blanket was pushed down a little. One of her drawers hung open by an inch. Her lamp was still on, but the bulb had dimmed, almost like someone had turned the dial slightly. She stood there for a full minute, then shut and locked the door again. This time she put her desk chair under the knob before sitting back down. She installed a doorstop alarm that night and downloaded a free motion detection app for her laptop camera. She didn't sleep. She just watched the camera feed with the brightness turned low, waiting for movement, waiting to catch whoever it was. But all she saw was herself, reflected back in pale green light. Eyes wide and sleepless, room still, air thick, and the feeling that the knock would come again. But maybe not from the hallway, maybe from inside. It was just after 3 in the morning when the alarm on her doorstop shrieked through the room. Julia shot upright, her body frozen with panic. The sound was sharp and violent, echoing off the walls in sharp pulses. She grabbed her phone and flicked on the flashlight, its beam trembling with her hand. The chair was still under the doorknob, but now leaned crooked at an angle. The door was cracked open by an inch. Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't moved it. She knew she hadn't. She stood slowly, every inch of her body tense. Her feet felt numb against the cold floor. The hallway beyond the door was pitch black. No light spilling in from the usual overhead fixtures. Just a black void that smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. She stepped forward, heart hammering, and pulled the door shut again with both hands. The lock clicked, but it didn't make her feel safer. She turned around, and the air in the room felt wrong. Not just cold, but heavy, like someone had been breathing in there while she was asleep. She aimed her phone at her closet. The door was open a few inches. It had been closed earlier. She was sure of it. Slowly she approached. Her hand reached for the knob. The light from her phone cut through the dark, but it felt swallowed, like the shadows inside were thicker than they should be. She yanked the door open. Nothing. Just her clothes hanging stiff and still. She turned to back away, but stopped. In the mirror across from her bed, she caught it. A movement. Small. Barely a shift. Something under her bed. Not a full shape. Just the edge of something pulling back into the shadows. She stared. Silent. Frozen. Her mouth dry. She crouched slowly and pointed her phone toward the space beneath her bed. The light reflected off something smooth. A wire, number A metal rod. And just behind it, the unmistakable glint of an eye catching the beam. Not wide, not blinking, just watching. She stumbled back and her heel hit the wall. Her scream never left her throat. She didn't think. She ran, pulled open the door, tripped into the hallway, barefoot, phone still in her hand. She didn't look back, not once. Not when she passed the elevator. Not when she heard the soft shuffle of movement behind her. Not even when the door to her room clicked gently shut. All on its own. Julia never returned to that dorm. She packed a suitcase that night in the common room while the vending machine hummed behind her, and the hallway lights blinked like they were shorting out. She waited until sunrise before calling campus housing, told them something vague, said she had a family emergency. They didn't ask for details. No one ever came to check her room. Weeks later, she got a call from a student on her floor. Someone had moved into her old room. A new freshman, quiet, kept to herself. The girl moved out less than a week later without saying a word. Left in the middle of the night. Her things were still inside. Her mattress was turned over. Her closet door was ripped off the hinges. Julia never told anyone what she saw. She deleted the motion detection app, got a new phone. Still, sometimes when she walks past dark windows or hears the soft rattle of plastic wheels rolling across tile, she feels that same drop in her chest, that same breath caught halfway up her throat. She keeps her bedroom door locked even in the middle of the day, slides a dresser in front of it before she goes to sleep. She hasn't used a closet since. Every time she thinks about that eye under the bed, she remembers the way the door closed behind her. Quiet, slow. Like whoever was in there knew she was going to run, like they had done it before. No one ever figured out how the door opened from inside without a key. Maintenance claimed the closet had no crawl space, but students still whisper about the room. Some say the mattress smells like soil. Others say they hear breathing beneath the floor.